All right, Madam Chair, it is 5:30 PM. So if you are ready to begin, we can get started.
Yes, thank you. Can we please begin with the roll call of those present?
Yes. Marie Rodriguez,
Present.
perfect. Ilya Arbitman, absent at this time. Zachary Bolton,
Present.
Gabriel Maya,
Here.
thank you. Jarrett Singh, Valerie Tilson, absent at this time. Anthony, I'm going to butcher his last name, Dispensary, absent at this time. And then Jurgen Hohen, you can correct me, sorry.
Sorry, present.
Thank you. Madam Chair, you do have a quorum of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting.
Thank you. If we can begin with item A2, do we have any public comment at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I do have a disclosure to read, so let me pull that up real quick. Ooh. All right. Madam Chair, our first item today is public comment. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on the reno.gov/meetings website. The link is https://reno.gov/Reno/41HZ_G It should be noted for those in attendance that comments are to be addressed to the board as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. The board may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. Perfect. If you are an attendee in Zoom and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Perfect. And then, Madam Chair, I also want to note that Marianne Potts is in attendance. Marianne, can you verify that you can hear us online? Marianne Potts is our minute taker, so I just want to make sure before we continue forward, the Zoom portion is working correctly. Okay.
Unmute. Yes, you are fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Madam Chair, we did receive public comment, and then I'm going to list the first individual, Beth Dory. Beth, give me 1 second. I'm gonna unmute you on the podium, make sure you're heard. And then please state your name for the record and I'll start your time.
Beth Dory. And this is a visual public comment. Can you put the?
Yep, moving to it.
I have a lot to say. It takes a lot less. Can we reduce that a little bit?
I do believe you may be able to reduce it. Sorry, we're in a different mode. That's not the same to council. So I don't have all access to the podium, unfortunately. Let me move up there and see.
I can keep
Yeah.
the light.
I think this is 2 and. Are you able to move in this way and then just kind of move it? I don't have access to the, oh, we go. Zoom.
Oh, wait a minute. There you go. There you go.
Okay, and then you can zoom it in. Do you want the whole thing on the
Yeah,
screen?
why not?
Okay, perfect.
And then.
I'll restart your time too. Don't worry. I think that, okay. Everyone's, go back, go back.
I think, wait a minute. I think we need just a teeny weeny bit more screen. I'll scoot it down. All right.
Okay. Good.
Can you read that? Read that. These are my concerns about ADUs.
All right, and then Beth, we're gonna need you to the microphone so they're able to hear you. I know, it's a little.
Concerns about ADUs. Everybody done? Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Did anybody on the board have any? There's no comments on.
No comments, no
Okay.
comments
Okay.
to be addressed to the public commenters at this time. Up next, we have Kevin Dory. Do you need the projector as well, Mr. Dory?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll keep it on.
Okay, Kevin Dory. And this is just a visual of a garage that was built over the property line. And then the main thing about ADUs are built, they're not required to have a survey. So this can happen. And then it ends up, the city would have to enforce that. And if they don't, then they say it'd be a civil matter and then everybody's suing everybody else. And this next one is, parking as it is now, seems like things will have to be cleaned up before you could add more units. There wouldn't be any, even more of a mess parking. And then the third one is, people are chipping away at the sidewalks. Happened in our neighborhood where they're trying to create additional parking on that aren't designated. They just pour a slab and then chip away at the concrete. And that was going to happen more with ADUs because there just isn't enough parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dory. And then I'm going to have Abigail take some pictures of your guys' comments so we can lodge them for the record if that's okay. And then for the record, I do want to note that Valerie Tilson is here. Member Tilson is present as of 5:40 p.m. Perfect. All right. Up next, we have Jack Hawkins.
Hi, Neighborhood 3 board members. I used to be on this board 100 years ago, it seems like. My name is Jack Hawkins, for the record. I'm an architect in Reno. I've been here for 35 years, practicing in Northern Nevada. I am representing myself, but I'm also representing the American Institute of Architects for Northern Nevada. When a few of us got together as a board to support the planning department's effort for ADUs. So we support it as the American Institute of Architects in Northern Nevada. Mainly, and we worked with the planning department directly. We had suggestions for them and they were pretty receptive and worked back with us. We're mainly in favor for ADUs for other cities have incentivized ADUs for a long time. It's one more tool in the toolbox to help with affordable housing. It allows families to have diversified. If aging parents want to live at home, they have an opportunity with ADUs. If you have a disabled child, they can live at home in an ADU, but still separately. If you have a college-age student, that college-age student can live separately, but still at home. So it gives lots of options. It also gives some economic incentives. So an aging person wanting to stay in their home can rent that ADU out as additional income. Just gives a lot of tools for to add housing to our city. It also is good for increasing density. And a lot of times, as long as I've lived here, density has been a bad word, but density can be a really positive thing for neighborhoods. That's, if you think of larger cities like Portland, they've incentivized ADUs for probably 30 years. So anyway, we're very in support of what the planning department's put together. And we just wanted to convey that we're going around to each NAB and just conveying our opinions. So thank you so much.
Up next, we have Connie Silveira.
Hi, I'm Connie Silveira. Thank you for letting me speak today. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to have a few comments. I know this came up about 6 or 7 years ago concerning the Newlands district. And it was voted down by the council. Because obviously that's a very historic neighborhood and a lot of those are not on real large lots. So I hope that doesn't happen this time. I think there should be some consideration for historical neighborhoods. However, if you have a lot size big enough for parking, for setbacks, for all of the things that don't impact your neighbors in a negative way, I think that, like Jack said, would be a really good tool here. We do need more housing. We need more affordable housing. However, in my case, I have like a 6,000 square foot lot with a 600 square foot house, believe it or not. And it says way to the back of the lot. So according to these rules, we wouldn't be able to do anything because from the front of the lot, back. It's a huge maintenance issue. I'm 70 years old. And like many of the people in my neighborhood, if you look at Capitol Hill, Broadway, you look in their backyards, their yards are huge. Half of them are probably rentals. People cannot afford the maintenance on these yards anymore. The water, the renters just can't do it. Many homeowners can't do it. So I think this is a really good way to infill and really help. As long as you have parking, very important, setbacks, like I said. One thing I would suggest is oversight to Airbnbs because we don't want it to just become a Airbnb boom. I'd like to see that it is for permanent residences. I did a little bit of looking at Seattle, in Portland. Seattle just modified theirs in 2019 to the minimum lot size of 3,200 square feet. I don't profess to understand all of it, what they wrote in there. And I didn't have the time to read the whole thing. So I could be wrong on that, but I did see these numbers. So they went from a 4,000 to a 3,200. Portland is a little higher, but many of our lots are 6,000 square feet. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the design. It comes up a lot. We don't want a different design. But I think we need to think about the changing times, the change in construction, materials. It's more expensive to build and design things like they did 50 years ago. The more streamlined designs, the prefabs are sleeker designs because it's cheaper to build that way. And that's really what we want. Things change, neighborhoods change. I think that would be important. So, I'm in favor of this. I think it'll be wonderful. And I hope that I hope we make it easy for people to do this process. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Connie. And then up next, we have Joseph Silveira.
He doesn't want to keep pulling my weeds.
Howdy, my name's Joseph Silveira. I'm in favor of the idea of putting more of these units in because, to be honest, it's just more economically viable than, traditional ways of expanding, your house, adding an additional room. And one of the big issues around here is when people get older, and, having to basically leave their house rather than having family move in with them because, the cost of adding an extra room, the roof over it, and all that, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of, additional, supplies, material, and labor. So this is useful for people that are aging out and also people like me where, if it wasn't for the fact that I live with, my mother, the kindness of family, I'd be screwed. And the fact is I've worked for Washoe County School District for 10 years. I make more than the median income for Nevada. And yet housing is still an issue. For me to move out, it would be devastating for me. Basically most of my money would be going towards rent. So we need more solutions besides just more apartments because that hasn't solved the problem. And I know that there's no silver bullet, but this is one way that we can basically, another tool in the toolbox to try, to help people try to find affordable housing. Thank you.
All right, and that's all the in-person public comment I have received. If you are a member on Zoom and would like to give public comment, I ask that you use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. There will also be a closing public comment, so you will be afforded 3 minutes at the end if you wish to do so. All right, Madam Chair, I don't see any more in-person public comment and no public comment via Zoom.
Thank you. We will then move on to item A3, approval of the agenda. And this is for possible action, and that would be the agenda for today, February 4th.
Jeremiah, I second. Zach Bolton, I second that.
So Gabriel Maya
Sorry.
moved to approve and
I
then,
move to approve,
Yeah.
sorry.
perfect, thank you. And then Zachary Bolton seconds.
Good. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it looks, the motion passes. Item A4 would be approval of the minutes from our January 7th meeting. Do I have a motion for that?
Chair Singh, for the record, I'd make a motion to approve.
Zach Bolton approve or second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion on that passes as well. Moving on to item A5, is our council liaisons report. Do we have a report this evening?
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to welcome the new members that are here. So thank you for being here online and in person, for joining our NAB and wanting to participate in our neighborhood advisory board. I just had a couple of items I wanted to share with the NAB. I'm looking forward to the discussion on the ADUs. It looks like we have some public commenters coming in, so appreciate you all that came out tonight to speak in terms of that. We did approve the business license for a new beer and wine place at the Hub Coffee Roasters. That's gonna be inside of the red. So just to give you all a heads up, we accepted a $100,000 grant from the Department of Public Safety to help with regional gang unit issues in the area. So that'll go to RPD to help with those issues. We also accepted a grant for $1 million to install solar school zone flashing beacon systems to help increase pedestrian safety for our youth and our families to be able to travel to school and back home safely. With some of my discretionary funds, I was able to support the Latino Student Advisory Board from the University of Nevada, Reno to travel to a national conference. So 2 other students will have the ability to participate in that. And also, some money is going to Soulful Seeds to help support their mission and help bring their garden to that place where they want it to be. And then the last update that I had for you all was just sharing that on our next council agenda is the approval of murals going up at the Public Safety Center. So if you want to take a look at those, they'll be in our staff agenda packets that will come out, I think, this Friday. So you can see more of that information. But those are all the updates that I had for the last couple of weeks that I hadn't been here. And I appreciate those that were here in January because I couldn't make it and join you all that day. So thank you all for being here again. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Moving on to item A6, staff liaison report. Do we have a report?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do. Perfect. All right. Abigail Mayorga, Council Relations Liaison for the record. This is my February 4th, 2025 Staff Liaison Report. So as Councilmember Martinez mentioned, we do have new NAB members. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating in the NAB onboarding. And then we also have a reappointment, so Member Maya. I do want to note that we still have member vacancies, so 3 total member vacancies and 2 alternate positions. So if there are members in the community or individuals that you know may be interested, please refer them to the Boards and Commissions website and have them apply. We would love to have them. Awesome. A couple of City of Reno engagement opportunities. So obviously we have ADUs today, so I didn't want to put that in here, but that you will have multiple opportunities to hear about the ADU presentations. And I know there are multiple community meetings happening, not just at the NAB, but virtual and other sessions available. But another one that may be happening that may not be on your radar and of interest is a sign code stakeholder meeting. So the public is invited to discuss specific code changes related to signage. So that is happening, the first session I believe happens February 10th from 9 a.m. to 10, and there is a virtual option available. And if you have questions, you can visit the City of Reno website at the zoning code cleanup to kind of find draft documents, submit feedback, and then, like I said, register for that meeting. The next one is happening tomorrow. So it is Black History Month. So there will be, the City of Reno is hosting a Black History Month recognition, specifically honoring the life and legacy of Kenny Dalton, who was a dedicated Reno firefighter. And there will be a proclamation and dedication reading at the Believe sign, which is just outside City Hall at the City Plaza tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. And members of the public are encouraged to attend if that's of interest or participate. As a reminder, Reno Direct is your one-stop shop for all different issues that you may be facing, such as potholes. I know we had our first snow, so snow issues that you may be seeing or need some plowing assistance as well. But you are able to submit a Reno Direct via the online portal, which is the best way to assist. Or if you're unable to submit via the portal, the phone number is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then upcoming meetings, the next city council meeting is scheduled for 2/12 at 10 a.m. And there is a virtual option if you're unable to come in person or attend via Zoom. The YouTube recordings are also online, or if you would like to view a previous meeting as well. Same thing with the City of Reno Planning Commission, and that is tomorrow. So there will be having a planning commission here, but those are also available on YouTube if you're unable to attend or participate live. And then our next Ward 3 NAB is scheduled for March 4th here at City Hall, 5:30 p.m. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to our business items. Item B1, this is the Board and Commission Decorum and Process Training. This is for discussion only.
Perfect. And I'll pull up the presentation. All right, should be good.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Morris. I'm the Chief Deputy City Clerk for the City of Reno. And bear with me, this is only my second one of these and I get very nervous, so I'll do my best. Do I just click the,
Yeah, you can try it. Maybe.
it doesn't want to.
Oh, try now. Oh, there you go.
Cool. Okay. So Neighborhood Advisory Board, NABs. Prior to 2025, there were 5 NABs. As you know, we had redistricting in the election. So now we do have 6 wards and 6 NABs. Additionally, the mayor serves in an at-large capacity and represents the entire city. Therefore, she does not oversee a NAB. These are the topics that we're going to cover a little bit this evening. I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar with them already. So I won't try to go into the weeds too much. To get the right angle. Okay, so what governs NABs? NABs are governed by the City of Reno Resolution 9317. This was adopted by the Reno City Council on September 19th of 2024. There was a prior resolution that was then repealed and amended, worked on by our council relations team, including Abby over there. And this resolution amended the previous governing document to bring all the NABs into conformance with each other. The resolution is basically divided into these 3 different sections: membership, function, scope, functionality, and governance. For membership, as you probably know, NABs consist of 11 members and 2 alternates when they're full. They're all appointed by Reno City Council. This section of the resolution also covers term lengths, the resignation process, and all of that. For function and scope, NABs serve as a forum for the city and the community for issues relating to city development projects, governance, and other programs in which community member participation is desirable. So your function is to review things like planning cases that may impact your ward, You serve as a community liaison to provide feedback to your elected officials, so Councilmember Martinez, from community members and yourselves and business owners in your ward. And so you're really the face of your Ward 3 community. Functionality and governance. We'll go into this a little bit more detail as well. You abide by NRS 241, which is the open meeting law, Reno Municipal Code 2.20, NRS 239 related to public records, and Robert's Rules of Order. So what do NABs do? We talked about this a little bit already. So you're a community liaison, so you facilitate communication between constituents and elected officials. And then engagement in the review of city and neighborhood topics. Again, you'll review planning commission items. You can provide comments that would be used in deliberation by council when those items come before them. And you can also identify neighborhood and community improvement projects in your ward as well. So for providing feedback, you provide a venue for citizens to provide feedback relating to the quality of life of all Reno residents. And while it's not your responsibility to take action on any city or neighborhood projects, council does take your comments into consideration. Robert's Rules of Order. So I'm not going to read this slide here, but when it comes to meeting governance, we use Robert's Rules of Order. In short, this is just saying that it helps ensure that the meetings are run efficiently. So you have a presiding officer. They are referred to as the chair. They should be addressed as Mr. or Madam Chair. If someone else is presiding over the meeting, they should be addressed as Mr. or Madam Chairperson. Even in small meetings, the presiding officer should not be addressed by their name. And all members should be addressed by their title as well. So like this, it would be Member Maya, or and so in other boards, it might be Director Smith or something. Obtaining the floor. To obtain the floor, you have to first be recognized by the chair. So you'll address them, Mr. Madam Chair, and then the chair will recognize you by announcing you by your title. In like smaller assemblies, they can just nod at the member as well to get their attention, but generally addressing them by title is preferred. And then this grants the member the exclusive right to be heard at that moment. For order of business, this is all laid out for you in the agenda. So starting with, call to order, approval of agenda, etc. The chair can choose to take the items out of order. And then just a note, the Pledge of Allegiance is not required, but many boards do just include it in their agenda as well. And then making a motion. So to make a motion, a voting member has to first obtain the floor from the chair when no other questions are pending. And then another member will second the motion, and then the chair has to restate the motion for debate or vote. So a motion should be really two things. It should be well thought out and clear. If it's not clear or requires clarifying, then it's the duty of the chair to clarify that motion before restating it for debate or vote so that everyone knows what's really on the table. So open meeting law. Again, I won't read this one, but essentially all of your actions, your deliberations, everything during this meeting have to be taken openly for the public. Agendas. So your staff liaison prepares your agenda for the meeting. And action can only be taken on agenda items labeled as for possible action. The discussion on the items should be limited to the scope of the agenda item. And then generally your agendas will also have an agenda item probably towards the end where you can identify items for future agendas as well. And then this is really more for staff, but just so that you're aware how this works on our end, agendas have to be posted by 9 a.m. on the third working day prior to the meeting. And this is excluding holidays as well. So they do have to take that into account. No items can be added to the agenda once it has been posted, but items can be removed. So if it's not on there, it cannot be discussed or you can't take formal action on it. And then quorum, to take formal action, so to recommend or deny something, quorum must be present at the meeting. And a quorum is a majority of the members who have been appointed to the board. So communication, we'll talk a little bit more about this related to like public records too, but serial communications are generally like electronic communication. So think about if your staff liaison sends something to your board, to everyone, just make sure that you're not replying all to that, because it is at that point considered that you have a quorum and that you're taking deliberation on something. So just keeping that in mind. It also includes things like polls as well. And then similar to that is a walking quorum. So that could even be something where if you have an item before you and then, two of you discuss it, and then maybe, a couple of you walk out of the room, and if you have a conversation about it, that's considered a walking quorum and back. So just everything needs to be conducted openly for the public to view. And then public comment, this item is on the agenda twice. So it's once at the beginning and then again at the end, and this is required by law under the open meeting law. It is also recommended that boards take public comment on any issue that the NAB is advising the city on. Public comment may be restricted based on the speaker's, may not be restricted based on the speaker's viewpoint. So if you disagree with something that a public commenter is saying, you can't interrupt them and cut off their time just because you don't like what they're saying. They are allowed that time. All right, so again, Robert's Rules of Order, we already talked about this, but proper etiquette is following Robert's rules. And then preparation, just making sure that you're reading everything prior to coming to the meeting so that you are prepared, you're ready to discuss. And then interruptions and side conversations together. This is also outlined in your agenda. In the beginning, there's a little part about decorum. But you really should limit these for multiple reasons. So one is obviously to avoid the appearance of deliberating and violating OML. But also, you have a minute taker who's participating, and if things get a little bit chatty, it can be difficult for them to hear what people are saying. Also, do not speak unless you've been recognized by the chair, and identify yourself before speaking as well. So that's for everyone in the room, also your minute taker, so that they can record that. All right, so public records. What is a public record? It is all city business. So anything that you create in your capacity as a NAB member. So if you're writing on a sticky note right now, that's considered public record. Any text message exchange that you have that is related to this role, it could be considered public record. And for confidentiality, generally speaking, there are only a few items that we can protect for confidentiality in the case of a public records request. And that's really just things related to personally identifiable information, or PII. So like your social security number, credit card number, driver's license number, those kind of things. It's unlikely that anything you do in your capacity as a NAB member is protected. So it would be most likely subject to public records requests. So just bear that in mind. And then why are we talking about this? The city clerk's office receives 25,000 to 30,000 public records requests per year. We have one staff member working on those, but this is how it applies to you basically is if somebody requests, your notes from tonight's meeting, that's public record and we would have to turn that over. It's also worth noting, I mentioned this a little bit, but there was an attorney general opinion that personal devices when working in your official capacity can be subject to a public records request. So just bear that in mind. And that is everything that I have, but I am here for questions and I'll do my best.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Can you give me that number again of how many requests the clerk gets?
Yes, Lauren Morris, Chief Deputy City Clerk for the record, 25,000 to 30,000.
Thank you.
Here, Maya, for the record, could you repeat the last item you just mentioned about, I think you said something about cell phones or any communication could be also considered as public info?
Lauren Morris, for the record, you said cell phones?
Yeah.
Yes, like your personal device, but it does have to be in your capacity as a NAB member. So like if you were texting another NAB member or something about specifics that we were talking about in your meeting. So it does have to be an official capacity. So it can't be like, you text your partner, I'm gonna be late tonight. They can't get that. So to clarify.
Very good, thank you.
Yes.
Press it like this, right? Okay. What was the official member Jürgen Hohen? How am I recognized by the chair?
You would be member and then your last name.
Okay.
Did you have a question for her?
Yes, specifically to personal devices. I would think just the best policy is to just turn it off.
I
during
mean,
meetings.
you can, sorry, Lauren Morris for the record. See, I gotta do this too. I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to turn it off. It's just communication specifically related to this work. So,
Okay.
yes.
Do we have any more comments or questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to business item B2, discussion and feedback from the Neighborhood Advisory Board on a proposed accessory dwelling units ordinance. And this will be for discussion only.
Good evening, everyone. This is the hot button issue, I think. My name is Grace McAdin. I'm a senior management analyst for the City of Reno in Development Services. We have been talking about accessory dwelling units or ADUs for like 10 years. So it's super exciting. We finally have a draft ordinance to bring forward to you guys. And so that's what my presentation will be about today. So I want to first start with backing up a little bit. There's a lot of talk about ADUs, and sometimes I get an email and I'm all in the nitty gritty and technical things of setbacks and height. And someone's like, I don't even know what an ADU is. Does it stand for something? So yes, it stands for accessory dwelling unit. It's generally known as a secondary housing unit that shares a lot with a larger primary home. So by nature, they're accessory to a single family home. Just to go back, that image on the right, I think, is a good depiction of kind of how we might see these incorporated into a neighborhood. It can be detached. It can be attached, so you might not even see it. It can be in someone's basement or just another, area of their house. It can be over their garage. It can be in their attic. It can be a conversion. Oops. So I don't want anyone to think that what I say today is the law of the land. Nothing is adopted yet. This is just the first draft. So staff spent a lot of time working with council members and going to city council meetings and working with the public, and then looking at kind of some of the ordinances that were proposed in the past to say, okay, where do we want to see this draft ordinance go? Here's our first shot at it, and let us know how you think we did. In 2023, council initiated this text amendment. They said, we do have a housing crisis. We want to, like everyone said, use that tool in our toolbox to allow people to build ADUs. This draft can still be changed, like I said, and any input that we get will kind of help us with that end result. And the earlier we get the feedback, the better, because at the 9th hour, at the second reading of city council, we're not going to be able to make some substantial changes. So I will now start going through what is in this draft ordinance. The first thing that we had to address is, where do we think these ADUs should be allowed? We started thinking about it probably anywhere where a single family home is allowed, right? Because by nature, if they're accessory to these single family homes, let's start there. And so we took all of the zoning districts where we do allow those single family homes. You might not notice, but we're not allowing them in multifamily zones. And that's because it just becomes a multifamily parcel at that point. So we kind of tried to look at the lot sizes of each of these and where it makes sense. So speaking of lot size, based on council direction and based on some comments we heard here, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense on these super small lots. So where do we start? 9,000 square feet was something that we did hear from council with our last meeting with them. And so that's in this draft. I don't even really know what 9,000 square feet looks like sometimes. So I wanted to give you guys some images to say what, you know, which lots would be 9,000 square feet. This image on the right is California and Arlington. So this might be generally like an infill area with some older homes. You're not going to see a ton of 9,000 square feet lots. It just doesn't happen. The only lot there that's over 9,000 square feet is a commercial lot. And you can see there it's 14,000 square feet. A little touchy. Okay. Here's another example. This is north of Plum. You see Marsh Avenue is crossed out there by the screens, but you're starting to see some larger lots. This is, you know, an area where there's going to be a few that are over 9,000 square feet. It might make sense here. It's infill area. They might have the space. One thing I do want to point out is that some of these footprints of the homes are fairly large. So they do still have to meet their lot coverage requirement, which generally per zone is 40%. So they can't just keep building and building on their lot. Here's another example. This is north of the university. These are definitely some larger lots. So areas like this have, you know, 10,000, 9,000 square foot lots. And then here's a map. Everything in green is over 9,000 square feet, zoned single family, and everything in red is smaller than 9,000 square feet. So you can see that some of the red lots are going to be in the northwest or kind of in actually your guys' ward in that Wells Avenue area. We're not going to have a ton of over 9,000 square foot lots, just to give you a general idea of where we might see these ADUs if that 9,000 square foot minimum continues to apply. Some other things that we've added to this ordinance, 1 ADU per lot. I know that there's some jurisdictions that said any and all ADUs, we want as many ADUs as possible per lot. We said, okay, let's start with 1 and see how it goes. And then as far as the size, setbacks, height, that follows all other accessory structures. So one thing I would like to point out is currently today you can build what we call a guest quarters. And the only difference between a guest quarters and an accessory dwelling unit is the kitchen and the ability to rent it out. And so in order to kind of facilitate maybe some conversions that we might see happening from a guest quarters to an ADU, we wanted to make sure that the height and setbacks were the same so that maybe we can see some of those conversions of guest quarters to ADUs. The only provision as far as other accessory structures are currently allowed to be built at 0-foot setback in some cases. Council had directed us to not allow 0-foot setback for ADUs. As far as parking goes, that was a concern with the survey that we had a year or so ago. And then some comments you've heard tonight. And so we required 1 off-street parking space dedicated for each ADU. And then as far as design, all accessory structures have some specific design requirements. I know that there was some talk about not having any design requirements, and some people want to see, you know, maybe the house isn't very contemporary and maybe we should allow the ADU to be contemporary. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we can't just throw out all design requirements because you'll see some people just build the cheapest thing they can. So we have some design requirements that say you have to kind of look like the primary home with materials and color, and the roof pitch maybe has to be similar. And if there's a really cool, awesome design that doesn't meet those requirements, we have variances or alternative, you know, paths that they can go. They just have to go to Planning Commission for approval. So next steps. So we're doing the NAB meetings. I will hit all of the NAB meetings in February, and then I think Ward 5 and 6, I'll have to go in March. We have 3 community meetings that are virtual to be held in February. And then we're hopeful to go to Planning Commission in spring, City Council in summer, just for feedback. And then hopefully adoption of some type of ordinance in late summer of this year. Yeah, so that's our timeline. And then for any feedback or questions or concerns, you can call me, send me an email. And I can also add you to our stakeholder list. So every time we have more meetings, you'll get an email. And that's my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Is there going to be any kind of need for, say, for example, the address, say the main house is 300 North Main Street. Will the ADU have to have a separate address such as 300 Main Street, Unit A or something?
Yes, so this is kind of one of those technical pieces we've been trying to work out. The county handles all addressing. So currently, when you come in for a building permit for a new unit, you go to the county and they'll handle the addressing. What we've seen in the past is like a half. So like 32 and a half, something street. Or we've seen A unit, B unit, over that. So, it'd be 312A, 312B. So I think the county went away from using the half addresses, so they'd get a whole separate address. But that would be up to the county.
Member Jorgen Hohen, a question. So the setback is 5 feet right now. Is that correct?
It depends on the zone that you're in. Generally, most zoning districts, it'll be 5 feet from the side.
So the question is, how much easement will there be, or will that be like a general guideline, right? Because like in my house, if it's a garden shed, I see 1 foot setback, right? And I'm not going to say, report my neighbor for the garden shed that's, a 10 by 6 or 6 by 6 unit because it's not set back enough.
Yeah.
So how much leeway is there for that?
So you're saying like if someone has this garden shed that's non-conforming
Correct.
and they want to convert it to an ADU?
Well, no, how much is there leeway in setbacks?
Generally, no. You can, like I said, we have a tool called a variance. You have to show that you have some sort of hardship to get a deviation from these setback requirements. Sometimes we'll see like a really old home that was just built a long time ago that's at a 3 foot setback or something obscure. But they still have to go through this public process. And then something I did want to point out, I know I've worked with back in the past about the concern for a survey, and because accessory dwelling units do have to get what we call a certificate of occupancy, they will get a surveyor on site to kind of verify those property lines so that, everything's good there.
And then I have a second question. Do the ADUs require a separate sewer hookup and permit? Or is that going, because when I looked for my mother, who's 87, possibly doing this, permitting in the second floor said 14K, Mr. Owen,
Yes.
up front.
This is
So,
something
question.
we've been working with our building department on, and it will probably be a case by case basis because there will be some maybe conversions where it's maybe a 600 square foot house like we heard today, and their sewer production is so low, like their sewer flow or the sewer fixtures that they have is so low. And so we'll have to look at that on a case by case basis.
Or could it just be that it's an extra $100 on my sewer fee per month over 10 years, which the city needs to get its money.
So
Right.
there's some different, and it's not my expertise because it's with the building department and sewer department, but there's the sewer hookup fee, which is extremely expensive. And then there's your monthly sewer bill, 2 different things, and they go towards 2 different things from my understanding. But it's a cost for those ADUs.
Right,
for
but it would
sure.
make it more affordable front end.
Right, yeah,
Something
it's definitely
concern.
something we've been trying to work through with our building department, but at this time, there would be a way out of those fees.
And Jarrett Singh for the record, when looking at the map, it does tend to lean itself towards more affluent areas in Reno. And it makes me think I have a few people that have asked me about this just at their own properties. They live over by Wells, which would be more in that grayed out area. What is the difference in process for somebody that might currently have a multifamily designation versus somebody that would be potentially looking at an ADU?
It's a good question because there's some, really low density multifamily units and can we go above our density allotment with an ADU? And so currently you could potentially with this draft ordinance. It would be very lot specific based on where you're at with your density cap. And what your zoning is.
Okay. So if somebody were, Jarrett saying for the record, so if somebody did have a multifamily designation currently, would they just present that to the planning commission, or how does that change, I guess, for them process wise?
If this were to pass?
Yeah, like, let's just say, there's the two scenarios now where you have like the ADUs, and then you have somebody with a current multifamily designation. What does that route look like for the person that has a multifamily designation?
So if you have a multifamily designation and you're at your density cap, let's say you're allowed 3 dwelling units per acre, or whatever, you're maxed out. You could potentially apply for an accessory dwelling unit in addition to that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. And so I guess I'm also thinking, if they had 0, say they're starting at 0, they have their single family home, and then they have the potential to add 3. Would they just go to city council and say, hey, I'm trying to add a new unit to my property? It's already multifamily. This is what I want to do.
If they're under their cap, they can just do multifamily. So if it's a single family home and they're allowed 3 units on their parcel, they don't even have to, they could do that today without an ADU.
That was my question.
Yes. Yeah.
Jarrett saying for the record, I'm assuming as ADUs become more popular, you're going to have people starting to look at like, oh, what can I do at my house? And that's where I see like this just becoming a thing for them. So.
Yes, definitely. And they might look like ADUs that you'll see, some areas in the city today. You might see an area that looks like it has an ADU, and it might just be zone multifamily.
Cool.
Member Bolton, for the record, does the city plan on expanding its current personnel to try and get these surveys done and approvals, or?
We don't conduct surveys. Those are, usually private people do those through the permitting process. And we don't anticipate a huge influx of accessory dwelling units. The cost of building these is still astronomical, unfortunately. The sewer hookups alone, like we talked about, is a huge cost burden. So we are not planning on adding personnel to handle that. I think we can handle that with what we have.
Thank you.
Give a reminder for the record. Since we're on this subject, I did a document to mine, and is there any discussion about regarding kind of the businesses that could also be using up this extra space as far as, a taxing consultant or small therapy, what's it called? Like stuff like, that you don't really necessarily need like a
home business?
Correct, yeah.
So you can do a home-based business today. We have very specific parameters as to what qualifies for a home-based business. If you wanted to build an a true ADU with a kitchen and have it be your home-based business, that's fine, but you would still need this ordinance to pass, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Member Tilson, do you have anything online? Just want to make sure we don't forget about you. While she's trying to unmute, Grace, we did have a question in the public earlier. Where can they find the draft ordinance?
It's on our website. And you can email me if you have trouble finding the link, but it's on our website. There's a zoning code cleanup website, and then there's a drop down for ADUs. There is the draft ordinance, and then we have like a 1-page cheat sheet because the draft ordinance includes a lot of sections of our code. It can be hard to read. And if you have any issues, you can call me.
Great, thank you. And then Member Tilson, you're unmuted. So do you have any questions for Grace? You're still muted.
Mute.
There you go.
This is Valerie Tilson, new to Zoom, very awkward. Curious about the sewage impact, since most of this is going south. Is there future plans for the the sump pumps to get to the sewage treatment going to be able to handle if X amount, let's say 60% of those ADUs that people are going to go ahead and request, will those type of utility services be able to handle the flow in that regards?
Yeah, yes. So, yes, they will be able to handle kind of the influx. There's a couple ways to go about that, but basically any development that comes in has to be approved by our utility services and engineers to make sure that the fixtures being proposed can be handled by our current utilities.
And I have a second question in regards to those who are, who don't drive. And let's say, because South Meadows has a bunch of holes to where there is no RTC access. I know there is certain type of, you can do Uber and there's City Lift, but will there be a more type of, any type of Lime bike rental area lots for those in, let's say a cluster of ADUs are around, but the nearest bus stop is 3 miles away? Would there be a possible interest that the city of Reno may entertain with the in regards to biking and such of access for non-driving individuals?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of, chicken or egg situation. If we were to see a demand, we could approach RTC with maybe some ideas of how to get transit further south. But at this point, there's not the demand there. So I don't know that RTC has done, would invest in that area at this point.
And I have one more comment, and I was watching the brain fart. I'm trying to think of the accessory meeting that Councilmember Brandy Anderson heads, and the Lime bikes were interested a possibility of expanding where they are in certain areas. And I'm thinking, well, I live next to Mira Loma, we're next to the disabled bike path, we have the access bikes. And I'm thinking, oh, well, it'd be kind of great if there's something else south where there's a lot to where we can incorporate in the both biking, able biked and disabled bikes.
Gotcha.
And that may be a benefit for the city of Reno for revenue with Lime.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that franchise agreement works or where the map is. So same answer. If we saw a demand for, expanding that Lime bike territory, then we could look at that. It's definitely not my expertise, but I could look into that for you.
Thank you very much, Grace.
Yeah.
I'm finished with my questions.
Thank
Member
you.
Bolden, for the record, I'm curious, what other square footage did you guys explore? Because I realize it's a balance between access and
For the lot size?
yeah.
9,000 square feet was kind of where we started. We've gotten actually a lot of pushback on that minimum lot size. I think a lot of people who would be interested in building an ADU don't have that large of a lot. And so we've gotten some feedback, maybe it should be 6,000 square feet. So like I said, this is a draft. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have it be such a large lot because, to your guys' point, that might be in more affluent areas, or maybe it's on the outskirts of the city, whereas is this really to do infill? So definitely something that I think is worth talking about is that lot size. Does that lot size make sense for a minimum?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Member Owen, Jürgen. Question. So how hard is the parking requirement? At least one spot. How hard is that in the proposed code?
It's one off-street parking space dedicated per accessory dwelling unit.
And then have you also looked at the total amount of fees per ADU generated?
Generated?
Yeah, well, basically, does it cost 30K in fees or 14K like when I went there?
Oh,
Building permit, et cetera.
for
Ways to
the,
mitigate that for affordability.
yes, there are some jurisdictions that have like an ADU fee calculator for an owner to go in and say, I have this type of lot, I want to build this large of an ADU, and it will tell you how much it's going to cost. That's not something that we have at this time. Yeah, no problem.
Moving on to our final business item, item B3, presentation on the Housing and Neighborhood Development Love Your Block project, and this is also for discussion.
Jocelyn Reynolds for the record.
Hi, Jocelyn, we can hear you. Let me pull up your presentation real quick.
Perfect, thank you.
And then you can just tell me next slide because I know you're on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. And then-
So thank you for having us. As we mentioned at last month's NAB, we are back with more information on our Love Your Block initiative. Go ahead and go to next slide. The Love Your Block initiative is all about transforming our city one neighborhood at a time. From turning lots into community gardens to helping elderly neighbors with home repairs so they can avoid fines and safely age in place, the Love Your Block program will help create neighborhoods where everyone can thrive. Next slide. On January 20th for National Day of Service, we had our official kickoff. We joined the Boys and Girls Club of Truckee Meadows and UNR Student Engagement Center to hold a neighborhood cleanup. We removed 20 bags of debris for folks in need in Ward 3, and the event was commemorated by the office of Senator Catherine Cortez. Next slide. In 2025 and in 2026, the City of Reno Love Your Block project will implement community and neighborhood cleanups led by your ideas and your needs as residents, activate a volunteer management system that will utilize Reno's people power to empower residents' neighborhood improvement, community beautification, or home repair efforts. We have a call for neighborhood project proposals. That application will open February 14th, and more information will be available on that date at www.reno.gov/housing. Next slide. And we're planning to deliberate with community to meet their needs for resource development. For more information, you can contact me. I am the project manager and Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation Fellow. Next slide. And I'm so happy and excited to introduce a new team member to our Love Your Block team, our new housing and neighborhood development department neighborhood coordinator, who's going to introduce himself, so I won't say much, and city lead for Love Your Block. Take it away, Roberto.
Good evening, board members. My name is Roberto Lara for the record. I am the new neighborhood coordinator for the city of Reno. And we have a new program called Love Your Block. So Love Your Block program is here to empower residents and organizations to bring positive change to the neighborhoods. The new program offers residents mini grants to fund community-driven projects that will make an impact on neighborhoods. So whether you're enhancing a public space or making small home improvements, Love Your Block program is here to support your visions. Like Jocelyn mentioned, our application will be opening up and live on February 14th. So if you or someone you know may benefit from the assistance, please encourage them to apply online. Housing assistance at reno.gov. And I'm also going to be providing my business card. I'll be leaving it on the table over here. So for anyone that knows of anyone interested in applying, you're more than welcome to take my business card, reach out to me by email or give me a call. But yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Roberto. And this project is funded by a collaboration between AmeriCorps and Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation, brought to you by the City of Reno's Housing and Neighborhood Development Department. And on behalf of all of us, thank you for your time.
I just wanted to say thank you. It sounds like a wonderful project, and I cannot wait to share this with the people in my neighborhood. I will be directing them to the website for February 14th. Thank you so much.
Jared Singh, for the record, I also love this. This is awesome. I did a question around like, what are the requirements for somebody's project? Does it have to be like beautification projects? Could it be just like enhancements to our neighborhoods, such as like a speed bump maybe, because our neighborhood has a hill that gets very fast?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So basically, the bottom line, there are other criteria, but it could all be summarized with it has to better the neighborhood in some way. So speed bump, yes. There is, so far we're looking at a cap of 3,000. So it does have to be within that realm. But the beauty of this project is you reached out to us and maybe it's not within the scope of the mini grant. The whole concept of Love Your Block is that we're looking for those resources with internal stakeholders, with external stakeholders to take care of that. We are 100% in this first year solely focused on Ward 3. So anything and everything, we want to hear your ideas. This is driven by you. If it can't be handled or rectified in the scope of the mini grants, we will look at other alternatives to get these things squared away.
Jared Singh, for the record. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you remind for the record, Member Maya, you mentioned 3,000 will be like more likely the limit for project. Is that per project or overall the whole?
Per project.
Season of projects.
Sorry, but yes, per project.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jocelyn, there's also volunteer opportunities, correct?
Correct. So we are partnering with UNR for within the scope of Love Your Block when it comes to the mini grant implementation. There are some requirements because this is AmeriCorps that we are recruiting 25 volunteers that consistently can come out, that we can train, give them some safety training and some skill training. So those spots currently are going to UNR students. However, we are always accepting drop-in volunteers for any and every project and our neighborhood and community cleanup. So yes, there is a volunteer opportunity. And I do have the link to the volunteer application that I can send to Abigail, and she can make sure it gets into the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you, Jocelyn.
You're welcome.
Member Maya, for the record, how is there going to be a way so we can, let's say, sign up through email and get updates as far as, oh, there's a new project going on this date, and so the drop-in volunteers can stop by on those dates?
Absolutely. So everything is going to be launched. We're going to have the television media campaign launch on the 13th, and then everything will go live on the 14th. It will be all this information will be included in the e-newsletter for Ward 3. So make sure you're signed up and receiving that. But it will also be updated through social media and reno.gov.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that concludes our business items. Moving on to item C, board members report and announcements. Do we have any? Okay. Well, I do have a couple. In early January, after our January board meeting, I did attend a Reno Sparks Community and Fair Housing Survey outreach to the community. It was a very interesting, enlightening meeting. Reno and Sparks are to receive funding from HUD, and they were gathering data for a consolidated plan for the housing needs study. And it was just something that was very, really interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing, what the result of that. Hopefully we'll have some news on what resulted from that study. Also, if you're not familiar with it, something that I've been working on through my employer, which actually applies to Washoe County and Reno Sparks, is there is a certification process for crime prevention through environmental design. It's abbreviated as CPTED. You don't necessarily need to go through the certification process, but I would like to encourage our board members to maybe go online and look that up. It's the abbreviation for crime prevention through environmental design, so CPTED. You'll find tons of information about it, but when we get these presentations about people looking for zoning changes or things that they're planning to build, it's kind of some good information to have in the back of your mind about how these buildings that we have going up, how we can prevent crime through the design. And it's a really cool certification that a lot of cities in the country are now going through. And just reminding everyone that there's a lot of opportunities for us to be involved in our community. Reno.gov, obviously, and KUNR.org, and our community centers on Neil Road and Evelyn Mount have community calendars out there, and there's a lot of things going on that give us an opportunity to get out and be engaged with the community and find out other things that are going on in our city. So that's all I have for today. Moving on to item D, future agenda items.
Madam Chair, I do want to note that RTC will be attending our NAB tomorrow. So I know Member Tilson brought up some great questions and points. And for those in the public who would like to come next month, RTC will be here. So that is an update for you all.
And moving on to item E, public comment. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a in-person registered public comment, and Tony Harsh. And then if you are a member on Zoom and would like to provide public comment, I ask that you raise your hand, use the raise hand feature button at the bottom of your screen. All right, and then Ms. Harsh, when you're ready, please state your name for the record and we will begin your timer.
Thank you. Tony Harsh, for the record, former city councilwoman. And I have been dealing with ADUs for over 25 years, probably since before she was born. So I am honored to speak to you with a little experience. ADUs is a sensitive issue because it impacts a community where we have limited sewer and water and parking. So your neighborhoods get a little concerned about that. And I saw when I was looking at the slides, I have a concern that it said no neighborhood restrictions. So am I to interpret that no CC&Rs are going to be respected in that regard, or historical neighborhoods? Am I correct on that? Oh, you can't answer me. I'm so sorry. That's a question to be asked. The last time Newlands neighborhood came forward about this is we were very concerned about the sewer, about the parking, and about the fire. In fact, one of the fire chiefs mentioned that if something happened in one of those neighborhoods close to California and Marsh, which you were looking at, that basically it was unstoppable because of the congestion within that. So I think that we do need to look at that with neighborhoods. We do build a city neighborhood by neighborhood. Is there going to be a limit within the ADUs as far as number of bathrooms and bedrooms? And of course, there'll be one kitchen. But then if there isn't a limit, is then one parking place off of the street going to be sufficient? And think one of your other members brought up the idea of how much this could impact, and were we going to be thinking about traffic and bike lanes and things like that. And I'm almost feeling like, is there going to be a second whole population on top of an already existing population? Thank you for being here. I love NAMS. I loved attending my NAMS, and you people really do know your neighborhoods. Thank you for your service.
All right. Up next, we have Beth Dory.
Uh-oh, this machine, can we work? Okay. Going on what Tony said, I'm gonna read this. Beth Dory for the record. Will the ADU applicant have to provide documentation that their CCNRs allow for extra units? I have at least 3 homes on Greenridge, Marthium, and Manor, which have valid CCNRs dating back to the 1920s, which prohibit these extra units. Any homeowner or city planner can call a title company to obtain CCNR information. Therefore, this information is easily available. Will the city planners create a database, carve out, or map of homes and properties with CCNRs which prevent these extra units? This way, the city can inform the applicant that their CCNRs either allow or prohibit ADUs before the expense of drafting plans. Or will this land use create lawsuits and neighbor wars for which we could have avoided? And Angela Foose, who's the head planner for the city, emailed me on May 2nd, 2024. And she said any CCNRs that restrict additional units would trump the city zoning codes. And then here are the CCNRs of these 3 properties that prohibit these extra units. So I think you've got to clarify if these things are going to be available for all the neighborhoods in the city with that map. Thank you.
All right. And then our last in-person public commenter, I have Connie Silveira.
Thank you, Connie Silveira. Just a couple of quick things. One, if you could address at the end, is this the only time this body is meeting on this subject, or will you be having discussion meetings, or is your discussion now? I'm just trying to figure out.
Are you referring to the ADUs, Connie?
Yeah.
So the ADUs have multiple meetings that are scheduled.
Well, I understand that, but as far as just each one at a time, do they have more meetings on
Each
it?
NAB will have the opportunity to have discussion. So Ward 3 was scheduled for today. So this was your discussion on the presentation,
okay.
and then we'll do the next NABs as well.
The other thing, the calculator fee, that's a great idea. And because that could let people know right away up front, because those of us with small properties, we don't have lots of them. We'd like to know up front, is this something that's going to be affordable for us to do? So I think including that fee calculator thing would be a great idea. And as far as CCRs, I think that should really be the burden should be on the homeowner to where, and if the neighbors go to court and realize they've violated their CCNRs, the building should be torn down. I mean, it's just like when you build wrong with your zoning or anything else, zoning enforcement. But I believe that shouldn't be a burden put on the city to add fees to what we're trying to do here. And lastly, I just want to tell you that the city is doing a great job with their graffiti. Our area is constantly plagued with it, but I tell you, as soon as it goes up, within a day or two, it is corrected. And so I just want to say thank you. Great job. And thanks for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie. And then if you're a member on Zoom, please raise your hand at this time. Seeing none, Madam Chair, Before we adjourn, I do want to note that Member Tilson did want to make a Board Commission Committee member report that the Access Advisory Committee does happen at the same time as a Ward 3 NAB, but if you are able to attend or if we end early and they're still going, you're more than encouraged to attend, and they have the in-person and virtual option as well. And then I think that puts us at adjournment, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn our Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting for today.
Chair Singh, for the record, I would second that motion.
Jarrett, can you make the motion? Or Member Singh, sorry.
Sorry, I think you did. My bad. Chair Singh, for the record, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
And I need a second.
Member Maya, for the record, I have motion second.
All those in favor that we adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Great meeting.
Bye, Member Tilson.